Well, it got off to a relatively quiet start this morning. There had been intelligence that Gaddafi troops were going to retake this border crossing just behind me, Jeremy, from the rebels, and that indeed is what transpired, catching us squarely in the middle of it all. And while we were there, 3 mortar rounds actually landed inside Tunisian territory. One or two rebels also ran into Tunisian territory to escape the government attack. And now, of course, the government are back in charge of that very, very important border crossing, Jeremy. 22,500 Libyan refugees have come across that border in the last 10 days, people fleeing the onslaught of Gaddafi's troops in the Nefusa Mountains. Now, we can expect the Tunisians to make quite a severe protest about the invasion of their land area by this heavy weapons. These weapons mercifully didn't hurt anybody, but that was a mere fluke. There were a large number of civilians and other people milling around this border crossing when those mortar rounds came in.
Sam, it's worth bearing in mind just the geography of this region and how much of a gateway, a lifeline in a way, that border crossing near you is to all those people in the western mountains of Libya.
Yes, exactly. The Nefusa Mountains have been, they were where the uprising began at the same time as it grew in Benghazi. Now, people are very familiar with the war in the east and the western uprising being rather forgotten. This border crossing in the last 10 days before it fell back into government hands was the lifeline for these western rebels. They're now having to fall back on smuggling routes to get food, water and above all medical supplies, fuel from Tunisia by secret routes into these isolated towns that are scattered along this border range, which essentially is a sort of crescent that goes from where I'm standing almost all the way to Tripoli. It stops about 100 miles south of Tripoli. A very, very important strategic part of the uprising against Gaddafi. They were complaining today that the rebels were complaining that NATO had not done anything to help them defend this border crossing, which has now, of course, been completely shut by Gaddafi's troops and puts them under considerable pressure. And there are reports coming from refugees. We're not able to confirm them yet, but these reports speak of rape, of massacre of civilians, and of a very aggressive campaign by Gaddafi's forces in this very important mountain range, which I should mention is also principally populated by ethnic Berbers, and they've always been left out of the Gaddafi largesse, such as it was under his rule.